I hope all is well and that you're enjoying your fall break. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the end of next week. At this moment, it's Friday. It's a week after we last met, and it's the end of our fall break. And because it's 2 weeks since we'll have met, and because this week sets us in motion for when we meet in a week, I wanted to give you a look ahead and a reminder of some of the things that we talk about in class so that you can give thought to how you structure your week as it relates to our class. First, you'll be turning in an outline. I provide on the class webpage a number of items that I'm looking for when I'm reading your paper. And I hope this is helpful to you as you begin to fashion and think through the development of your outline. Additionally, there's a chapter on negotiation from the textbook, and a law review article that I think helps take it to the next level. If we were to have read that law review article earlier in the semester, I think it might have been too soon. Or at least, I guess, a better way of saying it is, given all that we've done getting to base camp with our understanding and practice of mindfulness, it'll allow for an even more meaningful read and absorption of the insights that Leonard Riskin shares in that piece. I set aside, or I point out two sections in particular. It's a long piece. There's a lot there. And for purposes of this week, while I encourage you to at least run through the whole thing so you have a sense of what's there and you zero in on those pieces that are of greatest interest to you, that you zero in particular on the items that I mentioned because they'll be relevant to our class discussion. Professor Riskin's an expert in the area of mindfulness and law, in particular in conflict resolution and alternate forms of conflict resolution like mediation, for example, and he's an expert with negotiation. So I'm looking forward to exploring negotiation and mindfulness in our class to look to a technique, the core concerns that you'll be reading about in his law review article, and is also set out in the chapter, because I think you'll find it to be a very helpful instrument, technique for your interactions, your conversations, your negotiations with others. He wrote a book more recently called Managing Conflict Mindfully, where he further develops these themes. So this is something that he's been thinking about and writing about for a very long time, and I think you'll find it helpful, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. All right. Now, I just want to close with some reminders of the mindfulness practices that are on the website. So first, focus on the specific mindfulness practice you plan to write about in your paper. We're at that stage now where you're going to be writing about a mindfulness practice, at least one, but maybe just one. So let's zero in on really getting your mileage with this practice. Secondly, throughout the day, draw upon the specific settling technique you plan to write about in your paper as well. So there might be different settling techniques that you're finding helpful, but in your paper, you'll be writing about at least one. So again, get mileage with this settling technique. Make it a priority to draw upon it, because that will allow your writing about it to be that much more authentic, genuine, and useful because of the insights that you obtain from your real-world practice, whatever those might be for you. Also, practice the present moment pivot when you approach your present moment pivot point, or anytime you remember to do so. I'm going to put together a separate video as a reminder of why the present moment pivot is so helpful, but importantly, because I think it's immensely helpful to you. And for some of you, it will be a primary takeaway and benefit in a way that's more accessible as well. But as a reminder, when we reach our present moment pivot point, ideally at home when leaving, and at work or school when arriving, or any way that you construct that for yourself, you will pause, and then you will insert a settling technique. And that could be pausing and taking a slower in-breath or out-breath, pausing and doing a triangle or a box breathing practice. It could be pausing and offering yourself an affirmation. It's really dropping in to that pause, something that's useful to you. And that may also be something that you write about. So the more we practice this and get this down, the more useful it will be for your paper. And as we'll continue to explore in class, the more useful it will be to the cultivation of your, the strength of your mindfulness. All right. A reminder also to notice shaking snow globes and spinning spirals. We talked about in class on Friday. We went through a demonstration of the spiral. It's a variation, as one of you pointed out so astutely, and many of you may have intuited along the way. It's just another look in at the snow globe. And so keep an eye out for within yourself and others, shaking snow globes and spinning spirals. Practice D&I. Do not interrupt, or if you find it to be especially helpful as a reminder and guidance, D&IM, do not interrupt mindfully. Continue to practice that. We'll talk more specifically about your experience with that, because it is the kind of practice that, like all of the mindfulness practices, is one that the benefits and our understanding of its utility develops over time and with practice. And then finally, explore bringing mindfulness into movement, drawing upon one of the forms discussed in Chapter 9. This could be the Soapy Mindful Movement practice, and you have examples that you can watch to remind you of it. Or it could be mindful walking. These are talked about in the chapter on movement and mindfulness. We've been doing the Soapy Mindful movement along the way, and mindful walking is a very important and useful mindfulness practice. And then lastly, as I close, this, which I hope you find to be helpful, D&I-M, noticing shaking snow globes and spinning spirals, practicing the present moment pivot, draw upon a settling technique. You might see these as, oh my gosh, this and this and this and this and this, but also, especially as you've been practicing, you may find, oh, wait a minute, this is just one thing. It's just one thing. And this is something that if you don't quite get just yet, I encourage you to bear in mind all of these things, noticing snow globes, noticing shaking spirals, practicing D&I, doing the present moment pivot point practice, engaging in a settling technique. This is all one thing. What does that mean? Well, bear it in mind, because it may eventually just click. Or say, I'd like to talk, to explore how it is that it's just all one thing. And the reason I say this is because if we see it as one thing, if that's our attitude and our perspective, it may not seem overwhelming and or as confusing as it might be if it's 5 different things. So in this moment, hey, take a breath. Offer yourself an affirmation. Notice the snow globe. Notice the spiral. Where is it in this moment? And whatever thought you might be having, whatever internal dialogue that might be, don't interrupt. Just observe. Just notice it. And off we go. Looking forward to seeing you all on Friday. Take care. If you have any questions, as always, please reach out to me or Yushra. We can set up a time to talk.